The rain fell in delicate sheets over Willow Creek, painting the cobblestone streets with a glossy sheen. Small puddles rippled under the occasional raindrop, and the warm glow of antique lampposts flickered through the mist. It was a quiet evening, the kind that invited reflection. Yet, Ellie's heart was anything but calm. Inside her modest home on the edge of town, Ellie sat cross-legged on the living room rug, her fingers combing through Midnight's silky black fur. His golden eyes, wide and curious, followed her every move. For Ellie, Midnight wasn't just a pet. He was her sanctuary, her confidant. But to the rest of the town, he was something else entirely. The whispers had started when Ellie first adopted Midnight from the town shelter. A black cat? She's inviting bad luck, Mrs. Harrow from next door had muttered, clutching her grocery bag tighter. Others had been less subtle. Why would you bring that into your home? An older boy sneered at the park one afternoon. Ellie ignored them, or at least tried to, but the weight of their words always seemed to follow her home, clinging to her like the dampness of a rainy day. That afternoon had been especially cruel. The park was alive with laughter and chatter as children raced along the paths, their kites dancing in the breeze. Ellie had brought Midnight for some fresh air, hoping he might enjoy the scent of blooming flowers and the rustling leaves. But no sooner had they stepped onto the main path than the taunts began. "Look, it's the cursed cat!" a boy shouted, his voice dripping with mockery. "Don't get too close or you'll have bad luck for a week." Wait a minute. You need to subscribe to continue. If you don't, you will be supporting racism. If you're subscribed, let's continue. Another chimed in, his friends doubling over with laughter. Midnight tensed in Ellie's arms, sensing her discomfort. She held him tighter, her face burning with shame and frustration. "He's not cursed," she muttered under her breath, though her words were swallowed by the jeers. She hurried away, her steps quick and uneven, but the sting of their laughter followed her all the way home. The kitchen was warm and inviting, the scent of fresh bread and herbs filling the air. Ellie's mom, Grace, stood by the stove, her auburn hair tied back in a loose bun. She hummed softly to herself, the sound soothing against the backdrop of Ellie's turbulent thoughts. Ellie hesitated in the doorway. Midnight nestled against her chest. Finally, she stepped inside, her voice small. "Mom?" Grace turned, immediately noting the tears brimming in Ellie's eyes. "Ellie? What's wrong?" Ellie placed Midnight on a chair and sat down at the table, her hands gripping the edge. She recounted the taunts, her words tumbling out in a rush. "Why do they hate him, Mom? He's just a cat. He's never done anything wrong." Grace pulled up a chair beside her, her expression soft yet thoughtful. "Ellie, people fear what they don't understand. For centuries, black cats have been blamed for bad luck, witches, even disasters. It's silly, but these beliefs have stuck around." "But it's not fair," Ellie protested, her voice cracking. "Midnight's kind and gentle. They don't even know him." Grace reached out, placing a hand over Ellie's. "You're right. It's not fair. But change starts with someone brave enough to challenge those beliefs. And I know you're brave, Ellie. Midnight couldn't have a better friend." Ellie lay awake that night, the words brave enough circling in her mind. The annual Harvest Festival was only a week away. It was the biggest event in Willow Creek, a celebration of tradition and community. This year, Ellie decided, she and Midnight would be part of it, not as outcasts, but as a team. The following days were a whirlwind of preparation. Ellie and Grace worked tirelessly on Midnight's costume, a shimmering cape of gold and navy blue adorned with tiny silver stars. "You're not a shadow," Ellie whispered to him one evening. "You're a constellation." The town square buzzed with excitement, the air thick with the scent of caramel apples and roasted chestnuts. Stalls lined the streets, selling everything from handmade trinkets to jars of honey. Ellie's stomach churned with nerves as she held Midnight close, his cape gleaming in the sunlight. The whispers began almost immediately. "Why bring a black cat to the festival?" one woman muttered. "Some people just don't learn," another said with a shake of her head. Ellie's heart pounded, but Grace's reassuring hand on her shoulder gave her strength. "You've got this," her mom whispered. When Ellie and Midnight took the stage for the costume contest, the murmurs grew louder. But Ellie stepped forward, her voice steady despite the lump in her throat. "This is Midnight," she began, her words carrying across the crowd. "He's not a curse, and he's not bad luck. He's my best friend. I know many of you think black cats are something to fear, but that's just an old story. Midnight is loyal, kind, and full of love. It's time we see animals for who they really are, not what we've been told to believe." For a moment, there was silence. Then, a single clap broke through the stillness. Another followed, and soon the entire square was filled with applause. Ellie's cheeks flushed, but this time it was with pride. In the days that followed, something remarkable happened. The town's animal shelter, once filled with unadopted black cats, began to empty. Families who had been hesitant before came forward, inspired by Ellie's courage. Mrs. Harrow, the town's most superstitious resident, was even seen leaving the shelter with a small black kitten in her arms. "Figured it was time to change," she said gruffly when Ellie saw her. The festival committee announced a new tradition, an annual Starry Paws parade to celebrate all animals, with midnight as the first grand marshal. One evening, as the stars glittered above Willow Creek, Ellie sat on the porch with Midnight curled in her lap. The whispers had faded, replaced by stories of bravery and kindness. Midnight wasn't just Ellie's hero anymore. He was the town's beacon of change. "You did it, boy," she whispered, stroking his fur. "You're not just my star. You're theirs too."